Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I am your host, Teri Wellbrock, and I'm so excited to have Meri McCoy-Thompson here with me. She's executive director of Dovetail Learning, and we're here to talk about all kinds of fun stuff. We had done another recording, but I had a storm on my end. There was some other glitches on her end, and so we were just having such a difficult time. And so we were like, all right, we'll do a redo. But I so want to like redo that first conversation because it was so amazing. So I know it's going to happen here. So welcome back, Meri.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be back. It's really fun to talk to you, Terry.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I know I enjoyed learning from you, even in those glitchy, brief conversation that we had. And I just a fan of your work and admire what you're doing. Just such a gift. I talked to somebody this morning and we were talking about how there's so many of us here on Earth now and that are these we're light workers, right? But we're all shining our light in different ways because it's going to resonate, what will resonate with one person, might not resonate with this one, but something
Exactly.
will. And so I just think it's amazing that you were shining that beautiful light as well.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, it's again, I think more of us are, and we're all starting to find each other too, which is really cool because and that's why I do this show. It'll be 8 years old, and gosh, in like 2 weeks we'll have
Oh,
our
wow.
eighth.
Congratulations. Woohoo.
Thanks. I know. We'll have to have a big eighth birthday celebration or something
Yeah.
because that my whole reason of doing it is to just shine a light of hope into the world and bring amazing souls like you on to talk about the work you're doing. So let's first talk about gosh, there's so many good things here. Where to start? So dovetail learning, like I know one of the notes I had made for myself, like the we are resilient approach. Resilience is one of my favorite topics of conversation. So
Yeah.
let's go down that road and talk to
Okay.
folks
Yeah,
about
I'll
that.
talk to you about resilience. I'll give you a little bit of my backstory first, right? So when I was a young mom, or mom of two young children, my husband traveled for weeks over time at a time overseas, right? And my family lived far away. So I'm juggling my parenthood and my identity, raising my children, my career. And I didn't have a lot of resilient skills to get through it all in a healthy way, right? When I look back, and sometimes I would lash out when I got tired, or I would avoid difficult conversations with him. Especially when he returned, I would often sort of put on my tough armor, and because I'd been so used to being tough. And when I look back, I realized, wow, I could have been so much better mom, wife, and a professional if I had the skills that I have today. Now, I do look back with empathy because I was doing the best I can, but that gives me excitement for sharing with others because I know I'm so excited to have tools to share with other people, right? So that's my personal kind of impetus. Like I'm talking to my younger self when I do this work, right? And all of my younger self walking around. Um, and then also in my work, I've worked with nonprofits around the world, and I could always tell, like, we would do a lot of good work in healthcare and education, and it was, helpful and certainly made a difference. But I also recognized that there were a lot of people who couldn't quite get it, and they had other stuff going on that kind of prevented them from doing whatever we were trying to help them do. And then there were also people who thrived, whether they were doing what we did or not, right? And so when I look back, I go, oh, they also had skills that helped them get up and help them do more in life and help them become their better selves. And so all of those things, like, as why we're writing the book, it's like, what is my deepest question? My deepest question was like, how can we change systems of oppression and how can we work together? And my co-authors, his deepest question was how can we live our best selves, and we found together resilience is the answer for both of those questions, right? That's the interesting thing about resilience, is it gives us the foundation that allows us both to be our better selves, to work together better, have better relationships, and then have better groups that solve problems better. So all of
Yeah.
those things meet. So that's why I'm just so jazzed about resilience, right? Because it's multiple levels. And part of that is that we define resilience in so many different ways. So we define personal resilience, which is what we normally think about it, how we get up ourselves. But we also look at our reactive resilience, and that's how we react when situations happen to us, which happen all the time. We get the bad email or the phone call, somebody tells us some piece of bad news, and we go down, and then we have to come back up again. So that's our reactive resilience. We have our cultural resilience, which is how we look at the world and what kind of lenses do we put on and what kind of things do we see or not see with that cultural resilience. And then we have our relational resilience, and that's how do two people relate to each other and what kind of challenges, when challenges happen, how do they get through that? And then a group resilience, how do we maintain vision and focus with the challenges that happen there? So by defining it in lots of different ways, like piercing it out, then we were able to pierce out the skills that help in all of these situations. So
Yeah. Wow. You blew me away a little bit because I mean, all my years of doing this work and my own healing work and traveling down this road and talking about resilience a lot, I had not heard of those. How
yeah.
fascinating is that? So thank you, because as you spoke, I was like, oh yeah, like that's really resonating with me. The cultural resilience piece. And would you say, did you say emotional? What
And
was the
so it's
first?
we have our personal resilience, our relational resilience,
Relational. Okay.
our group resilience, and then we have our cultural resilience and our reactive resilience.
Reactive. That was the one that I was like, that one really hit because I a loved one is just really, really having a dark night of the soul. And so and it's that reactional resilience. That is really interesting. Now, can you help people build, let's say they really are struggling with the reactional resilience, like a particular one of those, right?
Okay, so
Or
we'll back up, and I just want to say all of us have issues with our reactive resilience, right?
yeah, that's
That's
true.
the thing. And I want to say this because it's so easy when we do this work to point to other people and like, well, they need help. And one of our core tenets is practice it ourselves so we can model for others and so we can coach others, right? And so let's just back up and say we all could use looking at our reactive resilience. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Me too. This means me. I'm always talking to me too, right? So, and when we do this, so we have named 6 protective patterns that give us our reactive resilience. And all of these patterns help us. That's why they're called protective patterns, and they can hurt us. And our job is to notice. So one of the things that's joyous in the training is helping people like do an aha, like, okay, wow, yeah, that's right. So the 6 protective patterns that we've named are distrusting. So that's when we distrust things that are happening. And I am working with a colleague right now, and he's actually trying to plan something, and he is writing pages and pages and pages with something. And I'm like, oh, why is he doing this crazy thing that's making me insane? It's because he distrusts himself. He distrusts the process. And so he's doing all this stuff. So when I recognize that, I'm like, oh, I can be gentle with him and see it as a vulnerability and move into empathy and not just like, oh my gosh, you're doing something that's really hard for me. So that's distrusting. Then we have hyper-caretaking. So that's when we caretake so much for someone we're ignoring our own needs. And a lot of times in the process, we may be enabling them and not honoring their own capacity to do what they need to do. Right. So all these things can be helpful. So when we hyper caretake, like an example is when my mother had Alzheimer's, I knew my brother was super busy and we had signed up to do meals and he had signed up, but he was so busy. So I just made the meal and brought it over. Well, he was there with the meal. And then he's pissed at me, and I'm kind of feeling, well, I'm doing something nice. Why are you pissed at me? I'm like, I was hyper caretaking, right? Because I didn't even contact him. I was just like, I'm going to jump in and save the day, right? And it can be helpful. It can be helpful to caretake someone else, but it also can be harmful. So that's just to notice around that. Then we have hyper-vigilance. That's when we're looking around all the time and seeing what kind of danger. And we all experience that in COVID. And then a lot of us experience it more because we've had trauma in our lives. And so we're always, what's going to happen next? What's the shoe going to fall? And even I'm noticing a little bit in myself right now because I've had a really hard few years. My mother was dying. My husband has severe health issues, had a lot of hard things with the organization. And I'm like, okay, I think I can put hypervigilance down now. I don't think I need it to protect myself, but I'm so used to it. So again, it can be helpful but then it's exhausting. So those are the first 3. And then our second 3, we have avoiding. Well, I mean, I did that when my mother had Alzheimer's because the family text would come through and I would just like, okay, I can't deal with that today. I'll just put it aside.
Mhm.
And and that's helpful sometimes, right? It's helpful like I needed to get work done. I couldn't be dealing with every single thing it came, but then I needed to engage at a certain point, right? So understanding, honoring that it's normal, not judging ourselves, but saying, okay, maybe it's time not to be avoiding anymore, right? And then we have defending, like, somebody's coming at us and we move into a defensive pattern and la la la, instead of just like listening to what they're saying. And I find I did that sometimes with my mother-in-law. She would say like, who moved the towels? And I would, oh, I didn't mean, not me. She just wants to know where the towels are, right?
Yeah, right.
But sometimes I would just move into that. And honoring, oh, then I felt a little vulnerable around. I must have felt a little vulnerable. That's why I moved into defending, right? And then the last one is attacking, which is my go-to. So I would move into attacking. And now in my life, sometimes I do that when my husband asks a simple IT question, like, and why do I move it? Because I feel vulnerable. We do this when we feel vulnerable or a little unsafe, right? So I do it because my schedule is so busy. Like, I don't, and he's going to be the dark hole that sucks me in. His IT questions always like, yeah, I have a little question, 2 hours later. Anyway, but I'm trying to work on that one and say, I must be feeling vulnerable around my schedule, and how can I address this in a different way? So it's a lot of things, but we just go into that in all of our materials. We have so many things on our website, webinars, whatever, to learn more. But just to give you an example of, once we know about our reactive resilience, it's so helpful because
Yeah, wow. I
yeah,
mean, to me, well, one, I know like immediately I was like, oh, hyper vigilance, which I know I lived in a state of hyper awareness forever
yeah,
until I did a lot of healing work, but I still catch myself doing it.
yes,
But I think a lot of times when we become cognizant of it, when
yes,
we're aware and
yeah,
can recognize it, like you were saying, oh, I'm feeling vulnerable. That's why I'm going into attack mode, right?
exactly.
Um, that's when we can take the pause and be like, okay, hold on. Like, what am I really avoiding here? Like, what's going on? There isn't present danger, or like, look around. It's okay. What's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
and it's all about just learning to notice, right? Learning to
Yeah.
notice, and then we have a whole bunch of other things you can do. But that's why understanding and it's the same as flight, flight, or fleas. We just know that people can recognize hypervigilance or hyper caretaking easier than, oh, I'm in freeze mode. That doesn't usually resonate. That's not language that resonates with us, but we help you define it in a way that you understand. Oh, I'm feeling vulnerable, and that's why I'm reacting in that way. So
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Now, your book, you mentioned the book, so I'm going to
yeah,
read the title here. The Heart of Resilience, Nurturing Your Inner Strength for a Joyful Life, which I love. You see my choose happy sign here. So, can
yeah,
live joyful life. Um, so do you address these things? Is it a
absolutely. Yeah,
guide for
absolutely.
folks?
Yeah, we
Okay.
spend a lot of time. There's a chapter on each one of the protective patterns, and through all of them, they help people, I mean, as well as all the other things I'll talk about today. But for each one of those things, it gives you like, oh, maybe there's a cultural pattern. Maybe I learned this protective pattern from my dad, or maybe my grandmother had it, and that's the way when we were working together, this is what happened. So it helps you recognize that. It gives you some tips about what could be getting in your way. It gives you tips about questions to think about and how to work through and how to practice learning to recognize your hypervigilance, for example. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like my brain's just going to all the different things because I'm like, oh my gosh, I resonate with that. And oh my gosh, yeah. And you're right. Like I instantly, of course, I thought of this particular loved one, but yeah, like a lot of them, like, oh, I so recognize so much of this in myself. But I also know, like, as I've done my healing work, right, that I can look and say, oh, I remember I used to do that. And
Exactly.
now I've done this healing work and oh, I don't do that anymore. I don't do
Yes.
it as much,
As
right?
much, right? And so for me, I don't do attacking nearly as much. When I met my husband, I was like prime attacker. And it took me like months to realize, oh, he's still going to be there. I don't have to attack him to see if he's going to be there, right? Because that was my, see if he's going to run if I attack enough, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So you mentioned also protective patterns. So can you talk
These are
more
the
about
protective
those?
patterns. Those were the
Okay.
protective patterns. Yeah, yeah. The cultural patterns maybe is the question you were thinking about.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that protective pattern, so protective patterns give us a reactive resilience, right? And then we have our cultural patterns, and our cultural patterns inform our cultural resilience, right? And our we have cultural resilience when we understand like our own behaviors, our own social norms and everything, and we have curiosity and we're humble about the multiplicity of others' cultural experiences, right? Now, our cultural patterns are given us to our family, our community. We learn them growing up on everything from, our gender identity to our ethnic identity, the construct of race, the construct of disability, um, religious experience, faith traditions, our political experience, all of those things, so many more inform our cultural patterns, right? Because they're all the different ways that we see, and what they really are about are what should we do in the world? What should we do? And usually often, what should we not do, right? Those are all the messages we got growing up. And they evolve. We don't have the same ones we did when we were 8 or when we were 18. And we can involve them with intention, right? We can say, oh, that's my cultural pattern. And like the protective patterns, they're great. They can help us in a lot of ways, our cultural patterns, and they also can limit us. So understanding when they're operating and how they're operating, again, it's just noticing, right? So just an example around money. For example, I was raised with a cultural pattern that wealthy people cannot be trusted. And it was interesting to kind of tease that out, understand how that was working in my life, understanding, oh, that probably came from my father. And then my grandfather was in an orphanage. And there's a whole story about how rich people didn't help him, right? And that kind of was passed down. Well, I married my husband whose family has some money. And so working that out and understanding sort of my reactions around that, like, oh, that's a cultural pattern. And understanding, people with money have just the same issues as people who don't have money. You can find the same jerks and the same good hearts in both sets, right? And understanding, oh, that's a cultural pattern. Then I can do it differently now. And that's just one example of millions, right? Because we have so many cultural patterns. And all of them, again, they can help us. Like we have cultural patterns, what we celebrate, our holidays, they give us strength, they help us feel belonging. One of my cultural pattern is I love women. I mean, I love men too, but I love groups of women, right? So we all get together and we talk, and I feel like we lift each other up. And that was my experience. I was in a Girl Scout troop for 12 years. I led a Girl Scout troop for 10 years. And I have always had women groups of friends, right? So I feel like I belong. So that's one of my happy cultural patterns, right? But then I also have to say, okay, and how therefore do I relate to groups that are mostly men? And I can do that too in a different way, right?
Yeah.
So understanding, oh, this is, just all the different things that we get about how we should and shouldn't be. And, that's when thinking about it. And of course, it's a huge issue right now because the country feels really divided, right? And what should we be doing and what shouldn't we be doing? And
Right.
understanding a lot of that, people have values, and the values are important. We get them through our cultural patterns. The values are super important. And understanding, oh, but they might express themselves in different ways, and they're the should about how we should be in the world. And understanding, okay, they have learned that from the people that's important to them. I've learned what's important to me, and being able to talk about it. And instead of like, oh, that's incredible, how did they ever do that? That's just the stupidest thing in the world. Instead of demonizing people, understanding it's a cultural pattern, right?
Oh,
Um,
gosh, yes, I say it all the time. Like
yeah,
it's just breaking my heart to watch
yes,
people ripping the other
exactly.
side
Whatever
to
the other is. Yeah,
shreds.
yeah,
And it's just because on the other side are people that you've called friends and loved ones. And
yes,
it's just breaking my heart
yeah.
because you're right. I loved how you phrased that. I mean, I think there's there's just beautiful hearts on both sides who are very passionate about their beliefs. And you're right, how the shoulding, how we should be doing it. Um,
And
but the
understanding a lot of times there's money involved in why we're in such a divisive place. There's people
yeah,
making money off of that issue. And so how can we circumvent that and understand our deeper needs? So
yeah, that's cool. One of the things that popped into my head, and I don't know why it made me think of it. So you said something about, as we change and grow, and maybe, and I just was thinking like we evolve, right? My mom, I was raised Catholic, And my dad was a Jesuit brother for 8 years. So it was
Wow.
a very theological upbringing, very
Yeah.
much about the dogma of the Catholic Church. And so
Yeah.
I was always the kid in church, that was rolling my eyes when they were like, reading about women be subservient to men. And I was like, oh, my dad would give me the elbow. And so we'd have really great philosophical talks, right? And discussing it. And so
Mhm.
my mom, one time, probably when I was in my 30s, she was like, "You are such a cafeteria Catholic." And I was like, "Oh my God, it's so true." Because I would go through the line as I evolved and grew and be like, yeah to that. And
Yeah.
heck no to that.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so, but it was my culture. I mean, that's what I grew up with, right? But I grew and I blossomed.
Right. And even the term cafeteria Catholic is a cultural pattern from people who believe that you take this whole thing and you have to say this whole thing or it doesn't count, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, there's alternative ways of looking at the world. Let's put on a different pair of glasses. And we see that as someone who has a wider cultural expression of Catholicism, right? We can call it something completely different. So,
Yeah, I love it. Oh, again, you're teaching me so much. I'm just sitting, you see me sitting here going, wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Gosh, there's so many things that I want to talk about beyond that. So this book, or no, not the book. You say you do so do you do presentations? Do you like you
Yeah.
go and you visit, and who do you work with? Who's your audience?
Good question. So this approach appeals, it applies to all of us, right? So that's the first level, right? We pretty much say yes to whoever's interested because our goal is to serve whoever needs us, right? And we have special markets. Part of it is because of history. We did a social emotional learning program for children for 15 years in our organization, right? One of the reasons we developed the We Are Resilient approach is because we realized adults didn't have the skills to model and coach children. So as kids would learn this and then they would grow up and like, oh, well, that was what kids did. Unless adults are modeling and embodying it and it's aspirational, children don't hold on to it in the same, I mean, they may hold on to parts of it, but they don't hold on to it in the same depth. When an adult in your life is actually doing this at a deeper level, then you aspire to be that way and you learn from them at a deeper level. So we understood that's where the transformation lever really is that adults, right? And so we changed our organization, and so our one of our primary targets, is educators, right? So school districts, county offices of education, schools themselves, teachers, and that educator is everyone from the lunchroom lady to the cafeteria, to the bus driver up to the superintendent and everyone in between. Because when schools embrace this, then they change the culture, and then the children change, right? Then the students like, oh, this is how we are as a people, as a community, as a culture, right? And that's the other fun thing about places like schools is their job is to create a culture of learning, a culture of people being together. And so helping people with this kind of language and these kind of concepts. And it's not a lot to make a huge difference. That's the other thing. We really believe in micro practices. We do one small thing with intention can change your whole trajectory. So that's a primary thing. And again, part of it was just our history, and that's where we came from. But we train everyone from healthcare providers, the people in prisons, to family support organizations. We train businesses have come to us, all sorts of things. So, and then individuals, right? We have a lot of trainings for people, for parents, for grandparents, for just professionals who want to become better at what they're doing, leadership development, that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, again, I applaud you. I worked in mental health arena. My degree's in psychology, and so I was working through a nonprofit organization focused on kids, and I was in the school systems. And oh my gosh, how many teachers would come to me or even reach out to me through private messenger or through Facebook or whatever and say, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help these kids. I don't know. And they were just looking for resources. So what a huge gift to be able to offer
Yes.
uh to help, because like you said, if you can teach the adults how to be resilient and how to recognize these things and the patterns and so forth and be able to make shifts, like then it's like, oh yeah, the kids are now like the modeling perspective. I love that because the kids are recognizing it. And yeah, again, what a gift to the kids.
Yeah. And the reality too, the modeling and coaching happens at adult level too. We just don't name it. We're like, oh, we're done. We don't need any of that. But the reality is we learn from people around us all the time about how to do things in the world. So
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten was, and gotten it repeatedly. So I find hearts everywhere. And when I first started happening, this happened right after my dad passed in '09. I started finding hearts everywhere. And I'm talking like in wads of gum on the sidewalk to, clouds in the
I have a friend who
sky,
does
like
that. Yeah.
just
I have a friend
everywhere,
who does
right?
that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I started putting, like, every time I would find one, it was like my Facebook feed was filled with, oh, Teri's posting another heart that she's found, right? And so, well, all of a sudden, what had started happening is I was being tagged in Facebook posts, or I was getting messages or texts or whatever, like, Teri, I found a heart in a potato chip. Teri, I found a heart while I was making my eggs this morning. And so it was like, yeah, they were recognizing, like, oh, this always reminds me of Teri when I find a heart. But then it was like their eyes were all of a sudden opening up to the beauty around them and seeing
Exactly.
thing things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautifully described. That's exactly right. Right. When we practice in something and ourselves, the world shifts. It does.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, when I had horrific trauma in my first 22 years of life. So when I took my ACEs score, the Adverse Childhood Experience
Yeah.
score, uh, it was an 8 out of 10 in the world of black and white, but in the gray world, a 10 out of 10 because I
Yeah.
had horrible bank robberies, but I was 21 and 22. It was past that 18 mark, but it was still incredibly traumatic. And so gun violence. And so that one I said, I'm checking that one off. So yes, but people would ask me all the time, how did you get through it? How did you get, like, they hear my story and they're like, oh my gosh, like you're always smiling and you radiate joy. And I always was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know, by the grace of God. And
Yeah.
then I came across the resilience part of it and the resilience score. And so I looked at that. Well, it was because I had my grandma Kitty, who was this gentle,
Yeah.
loving presence, never yelled, very, like, always encouraging. I had my best friend's parents who would always had me at their house, and it was a safe, kind, loving place. So again, talking about the modeling part of it, like, I was exposed to these people that weren't what was happening in my household and, my life. And so that was, unbeknownst to me, building this resilience in me as a kid.
Exactly. And we can't solve all the adverse childhood experiences that children will have, but we can be beacons of hope and light for all the ones as well, just like you said, right? And that's what I feel like we're called to do. So
Yeah. Yeah. One of my podcast friend or podcast guests years and years ago was like, you know, you can just be that one caring adult. And
exactly,
whether the soccer
exactly,
coach or the teacher or the grandparent or whatever it is.
exactly, exactly. And same adults need the same thing. It's the science is all what children need, but adults need that the one caring friend that can make the difference, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you had mentioned something earlier, and I'm sorry, my brain's kind of frazzled and forgot it, but it reminded me, you were talking about the caretaking. Is it over care? Like
hyper caretaking,
hyper
hyper-vigilance,
care.
hyper caretaking, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, hyper caretaking. Well, it reminded me, when my mom was ill and her last few years of life, and she was an alcoholic. Then we did a lot of healing work, and she was sober the last few years of her life until she dove back in at the end. But there, so what I'm hearing is, and just clarify it, is that codependency part of it, because I was the one who always put on the Superwoman cape and swooped in to save the day until the day I said, enough. I
Yeah,
I can't be the savior anymore. And you
yeah.
know what happened? She, like, I didn't talk to her for 3 months, and I cried every day because it broke my heart to not be able to be her savior anymore, or to try to
Ah,
be. She
yeah,
did it.
yeah,
She did it. Like,
yeah.
and so I was like, oh my God, it was like I wasn't believing in her enough to be
Yes.
able to step away and say, and cheer her on. You can do this. I believe in you, but I'm not doing it for you.
Yeah. And honestly, there's so many parents that are trying to do that same thing with their kids. Their kids are suffering. And I recognizing looking back, because my kids are now 31 and 33. And I look back and I go, I did not let my children own their difficult feelings enough. I wanted to take those away because it's hard as a parent. It's hard to let them home, just like it was hard for you to let your mom be in the mess, right? The people that we love, we often emotional hyper caretake for. Like, I'll just take that little feeling away and I'll help da. And it's like, they need to go through it. They need to know that they can, the wave is hard and they're going to walk again. Right. And that's one key part of resilience, right? It's just like, oh, and then, yeah, you do have to put the gates up, especially with kids. There are things that they can go off the cliff. So I do think there are times where we are the gates, right? The walls. But there's also a lot of time, and I know with my children, they were never at the gate, thankfully. And I just was too, I would like try to talk to them about happy things, instead of, and we call that positive reframing, but they needed to be ready to do it themselves instead of just letting them feel the sad feelings and sitting there with them in the sad feelings, with them in
Yes.
the challenge. And we need to do that for adults too. I have to say, I'm a fixer too. I like to go in and fix people. And so it's like, nope, my job is just to sit here with you in that, right? So that's one of the things I'm working on myself. Like, just let's sit together in the pain and then I'll be with you. And that's really actually all most of us need most of the time. So,
Yes. And I was right there with you. Like I wanted to protect my kids from everything because of my
yeah,
horrible trauma. I
yeah,
didn't want them to ever experience any of that, the pain that I had gone through. But then as they became adults and I realized, oh, I can't be at college with them when they're
exactly.
experiencing these things that
Yeah,
were horrible, that
yeah,
caused a lot of pain. And then I started to say to them, as much as I wish I had a magic mom wand and could wave it and make it all better, I can't. This is your journey and I'm here to love you. I'm here to pray for you. I'm here to support you and listen, but I cannot fix it for you.
yeah.
And that was so hard.
I know. And when you're saying that more to yourself than them, even.
Yeah.
Because even though they're coming to you to solve the problem, part of them knows that that's not actually what they need and they actually can do it. But you need to, and especially because if you've had too much history of saving them, right? So it's a challenge. We all walk it. As a
Yeah.
parent, we all walk it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So now if folks want to work with you like an organization or individual,
Yes.
how do they do
Yeah.
so? Is it a
Well,
group thing, individual, both?
we have both, right? We do individual trainings, we do individual coaching, we have self-paced courses on our website, and then we also have, it's really nice in a group. Our favorite way to do training is train the trainer, honestly, with groups, because we like to train people. All of our training materials are open educational resources. So we want people to take it, download it, and use it with their own groups and take it out there in the world because we know that that's the only way that this is going to get out there in the scale it needs to, right? So, and even individuals, like we have a sliding scale, we do bartering, we do all sorts of things because we are so committed to getting the work out into the world, right? And yeah, so yeah, you can contact us at our website. Obviously, has lots of ways. Meri at Dovetail Learning, MERI, dovetaillearning.org is how you reach my email. And yeah, we would love to work with whoever's interested in learning this work more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wonderful. Well, I certainly want to give you an opportunity before we wrap up here to maybe address anything that we didn't get an opportunity to, or leave folks with any words of wisdom.
Yeah, words of wisdom. Our primary thing is for people to understand that with it, first of all, resilience is always going to go up and down. That's never going to change, right? But our goal is to make it go up and down a little bit less and just have a little bit more control, right? And then, our second thing is with intention, it can change. So we just give you small micro practices to make a difference because this is not something you don't always have to be up and always down, right? You can do a little bit that makes a huge difference. So that's my big words of wisdom, like try it.
Yeah, and I
So
love that you used the word practices because honestly, that's what changed. I truly believe that's what really shifted everything in my life. I was doing a lot of the EMDR and the therapy work and all of that. But it was when I started putting things on my to-do list and my calendar, it was like, we're going to do mindfulness practice today. We're going to do some tapping today. We're going to do whatever it was, right? Like nature walk.
Yes. Yes.
Those practices then became habits.
Exactly, because none of this, right, is a one and done. We're never one and done, first of all. And second of all, it's small things, like you said, make a difference over time. So if all the small practices become habits. For me, one of them is just like mindful breathing. Breathing mindfully, you do it enough. And then, like, when that thing happens, then you just know to take a deep breath, which changes how you react to things. So when you work with us, most of it's not going to be like, I've never heard of that before. That is the weirdest thing. It's more like helping you be intentional about how to do it better. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has just been so clarifying in so many ways. I mean, what a beautiful conversation. Again, just huge fan of your work. And
Thank you.
yeah, obviously resilience. I just think it's just needed. It's so crucial
Yeah.
for us to get through this life as humans because, well, especially, with, like you said in the book title, to live a joyful life. It's just a
Yeah.
key ingredient. So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Well,
yeah,
great to
yeah.
talk with you, Teri. Thank you so much for having me on. Love this conversation. Anytime you want to do it in the future, we can do it again. So,
Oh, for sure, for sure. I love it. So one last time, how do folks connect with you?
Dovetail Learning, that's our website, Dovetail learning.org, dovetaillearning.org. Yeah,
Awesome. All right. Well, again, it's been wonderful, and thank you so very much.
you're welcome. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag Hope for Healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year. And I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, if you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's Teri, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.